Welcome, Abnormal Investigations. I hope everybody's doing good. Man, this cold has been something to try to get over, but nonetheless, I have a pretty interesting Bigfoot encounter for you guys. This one is one like I have never even heard of either, so I think everyone is going to really enjoy this one. So let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you for listening. And if you don't mind, please smash that like button and share this out to your social media. It sure helps us out a whole lot. Hey, Mike, I'm writing you this because I don't know who else I could tell. And you're the only person I know who has any room in their head for the impossible. I need you to just read it. I know your audience is very understanding. That has what's made me choose your channel. I really appreciate that a whole lot that you respect us enough. You know, Mike, don't say a word of this until you've had time to sit back and think about what I'm about to share with you. And whatever you do, for God's sakes, don't come out here looking for it. I'm pretty sure I've lost my mind, or maybe even found something that was never supposed to be found. It all started 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday morning. The weather was turning, it's kind of getting cold this time of year. And come on, computer. And it was a little bit of that early fall Christmas was in the air. The morning was getting foggy and damp. I was up before dawn, wanting to get to my deer stand on the old logging road that runs parallel to the Kiamichi Mountains down here in Oklahoma. The air was still heavy with the scent of the wet earth and the pine, and the mist coming off the river was so thick it felt like I was walking through almost a dream. I was maybe a mile in when I heard it, a soft rustling off to my left, just beyond the thicket of the blackjacks and the sumac. Now, I've been hunting these woods for 40 years. I know the sounds of a raccoon, a squirrel, or even a skittish deer. They all have their own signature. This was different. It was a quick, light fall, a light footfall, followed by a slight snapping of a twig. Then silence. A squirrel, I would have chattered. A raccoon would have been slower. A deer, well, a deer sounds like a deer. This was something else. It sounded like a small creature moving with a purpose, almost in a playful way. It was like trying to hide. I froze, leaning against the rough bark of the pine, and I waited. After a minute or so, I heard it again, close this time. A I figured it was a stray dog or maybe a bobcat. Then it emerged from the brush. It was small, maybe 2 feet tall, with a kind of reddish brown fur. It moved on 2 feet, a quick, almost comical waddle, and its arms, they were long and gangly. It scampered up an old hickory tree in a flash. Its movements were fluid, and it was very fast. I saw it plain as day, Mike. It looked like a baby monkey. I laughed out loud, a short disbelief, puff of air. A monkey in the Kiamichi Mountains? The first thing that came to my mind was the story from a couple years back about that person that had heard one that had got loose around Eufaula. It caused a whole mess of trouble. I remember the news saying it escaped from some private collection. My mind jumped to that. Some rich idiot's pet monkey got loose and somehow made it all the way down here. It was a hell of a story, but I figured the boys at dinner, they would get a good laugh out of it, and it would be a quick story to tell. So I decided to follow it, not to catch it, just to see where it went, to prove to myself I wasn't seeing things. I pulled out my cell phone in hopes to get a photo. I left my rifle slung over my shoulder and I started down the slope, deliberate stalk, the way I would with a turkey. It moved fast, and I had to keep up, navigating through the thick brush, stepping over fallen logs, and trying my best not to make a sound. The pursuit went on for what felt like an hour, maybe more, and I realized it was moving deeper, not heading back toward the roads or the houses. The sun started to burn off the mist, and the light grew sharper. And that's when I started to notice the differences. Up close, the creature's fur was more shaggy and matted, a kind of a mottled brown gray, not the smooth, uniform coat of a monkey. Its feet were long and flat, and it used its arms and knuckles a bit like a primate, but its overall posture was more upright. A kind of awkward, loping gait. When it turned its head to look back at me, its eyes were dark, almost black, and they held an intelligence that made my stomach almost clench. It was a look of pure primal fear, but also a kind of a knowing, like it understood that I was chasing it. And it also had human characteristics to its face. It wasn't a monkey. The thought hit me like a slap. What in God's name was it? It was a baby, that was for sure. Maybe 3 feet tall now. That I had a closer look, with a slender build but a disproportionately wide chest. It was clumsy, still like a human infant learning to walk, but its scrambling was unbelievably quick. We were nearing the river, and the terrain changed from dense forest to steep rocky bank. The sounds of the water rushing and tumbling over the stones grew louder. The creature seemed to recognize the destination, moving with a renewed sense of urgency. It scrambled down the last incline, its long arms helping it navigate the loose rock and the dirt. And that's when I heard it, a sound from the other side of the river. It was a low, resonant rumble, a noise that seemed to vibrate through the soles of my boots down up my spine. It wasn't a deer, and it was not a bear. Nothing I'd ever heard in my life. It was a sound of immense power and a warning, like a low-frequency foghorn mixed with a deep, cavernous growl. The sound that you just don't like to hear, and one that goes completely right through you. The little creature on the bank heard it too. It stopped dead in its tracks, its small body stiffening. It let out a high-pitched chittering sound, almost like a chattering, a noise that was half distress and almost half of a helpful quarry, like it was afraid. And it also sounded like a bunch of Chinese men jibber-jabbering. It was really weird. I felt that it was calling for its mother. The rumble came again, and this time more demanding. The baby looked at me, then at the river, its head darting back and forth. The fear in its eyes was almost unbearable. It was trapped between me and the roar. And that instant, I felt kind of its understanding. I can't put words in my mouth to even tell you. This wasn't some lost pet. This was a child, and its parents was calling it home. It didn't hesitate. It plunged into the river, which was running faster and deeper than I had ever realized or had seen in a long time. The water wasn't too high, but it was cold, and the little thing had to paddle hard to keep its head up, its little hands splashing frantically. The roar from the other side of the bank intensified, a clear signal of a warning of aggression for me to stay back. "Hey," I shouted, dropping my rifle and raising my hands in a gesture to surrender. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you," I yelled. It was stupid, I know. But seeing that small thing struggling in the water, propelled by fear that was a cause that maybe I was part of, made me feel bad. The roar stopped abruptly. All I could hear was the rushing water and my own heart. I scrambled down to the edge of the riverbank and watched. The little Sasquatch made it to the other side and pulled itself out, shivering and soaked. It didn't look back at me. It just disappeared into the tangle of brush. The forest fell silent again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not peaceful, but watchful. I felt like I was being observed and watched from the other side of the river. I didn't stay long. I backed out slowly. I was afraid. I'll admit this was very scary. I climbed the bank, walked back to my truck, my mind reeling. The monkey story was a lie, I told myself, to make sense of something that defied all senses. Nobody lost a monkey in Eufaula. These are Bigfoot that people are seeing, and it's a cover-up. I've now seen with my own eyes. I wasn't chasing a monkey, but yet I was chasing a baby juvenile Sasquatch, something that was not supposed to exist. Now, I've been back to the area, not back to the same spot, and I wonder sometimes if it remembers me, or if it would even remember me if it saw me. Sometimes I do listen for that chatter, that samurai talk, but I've never heard it. But a part of me longs to hear it again. I hope someday to see it or to hear it again. I leave gifts in the woods for it. I don't know that I should, but I do. And on Christmas, I will be leaving gifts and toys also. Your friend, Harold. You know, it's interesting what you chased, and I do believe the cover up part that they do cover these things up. The gifting, though, I think you got to be really careful with that. You may end up seeing more of them than what you want, and they may end up following you home. But yeah, that's an interesting story, and I'm sure they have a. They're not your friend, I'll tell you that. I don't believe any of them are your friend. So be very careful if you're out, and especially if you're gifting them. Don't get too comfortable around them, or you may end up being on the 411. These things are not nice. They're not something that wants to be your friend. Remember, you're always on the menu. So just be cautious, is what I would tell you. Thank you for sharing your story here in October. We appreciate that. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel, folks. Don't be something's dinner. And remember, every time you're in the woods, you are being watched by something.